Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode I'll be discussing the 2013 action movie sequel Fast and Furious 6, which, again, as that name might suggest, is the sixth entry into the Fast and Furious franchise. Once again, directed by Justin Lin, following his directorial stints with the last three movies in this franchise. So, as a disclaimer, as these films are now starting to weave more of an interconnected web, I may give some spoilers for this film and others in the Fast and Furious franchise, so please do switch off now if you don't want to hear any plot details for these films at all. But please do come back though. When you have watched the films, do let me know what you've thought. I am always so very interested to know. So, following on from their big score at the end of the fifth movie, we catch up with our band of thrill-seeking fast car junkies living the good life, for the most part, until a new threat brings an old friend to the surface, one we had long since believed was lost. DSS agent Luke Hobbs, he's not the one that's lost, as played by Dwayne Johnson, wants to catch international techno-criminal and mercenary for hire Owen Shaw, as played by Luke Evans, and intends on fighting his sophisticated crew with one of his own, namely that of one Dominic Don Toretto, as played by Vin Diesel, who are lured back into the fight with the prospect of reuniting with their old friend and, in the process, getting their freedom once and for all. The team must fight an adversary just as smart, innovative and intuitive as they are, and soon learn that the stakes are higher than they have ever thought they possibly could be, becoming embroiled in a mission to stop a weapon known as a nightshade device from falling into the wrong hands. They must use every skill and, of course, every fast car they can find, those at their disposal, to ensure Shaw doesn't get to the device before they have a chance to stop his team from creating worldwide Armageddon against a crew of criminals just as every bit as good and together as our team, but without that magic ingredient, family. So, this entry sees most of the team return from the fifth instalment to reprise their roles for another helping, if you like, of high-octane thrills, which provides a nice amount of continuity throughout. And although we do embark on a mission to save a crew member, last seen in the fourth instalment, and hence not known to everybody, it is a nice touch that we are all family enough, you know, in order to risk life and limb to go that extra mile for the Torettos. Which is a good thing, otherwise there wouldn't be all that much reason to go full pedal to the metal in this instalment at all if they didn't, but luckily for us, the series continues to breathe new light into this franchise with this outing for our gang of motor enthusiasts, turning them from a motley crew of dangerous criminals, if you like, into the world-saving, militant thwarting and super spy team that we see in later movies. We start with a visual montage, recapping some of the main events of the previous movies in the series during the opening credits, which was quite a nice way to get kind of reacquainted, I must admit. A nice and gritty opening with a sentimental trip down memory lane. It builds up a great feeling that it's all been leading to this, you know? Very rousing indeed. The sense of family and commitment is strong in this movie. Too much, sometimes. It can be a bit overwhelming to the film's plot. Almost like it has to be forced and then to be reinforced at every available juncture. Now, family is important, extremely important. But hey, we get the point in this movie within the first 5 minutes. And then every 5 minutes thereafter. But, joking aside, this film does mark a turning point for our team. Not only do we start to raise the stakes, given that we are no longer dealing with just a few crime overlords, but now indeed international criminals and terrorists with world-ending possibilities. But indeed, it is the point at which we, now the extended crew, if you like, including Hobbs, do start to feel like a family. And the film does have an enormous sense of belonging. And I can't fault it for that. I can't. These characters seem connected now, if you know what I mean. And it is the turning point when they do indeed feel like a family. Compared to the last entry, which I did find to be quite bright and breezy overall, this one does take a more serious tone, becoming more of a spy kind of espionage thriller at times. You can see the series deviating, which does kind of marks the series move into this genre, as we will also see in more upcoming installments. No longer are we content on the theft of a couple of DVD players and some flat screen TVs. Oh no, not even overthrowing a drug lord or two. But this I don't mind. You know, the series of course is starting to get a bit over the top at times, but I watch these films for a bit of pure escapism, and this indeed is what we get here through and through. At this stage in the game, it doesn't suffer too much from having to go too extreme to outdo its predecessors, but it does so anyway. It does have a more dark feel to it overall, and this is bolstered by their choice of location for this entry. That of the most exotic places, London. Now, before anybody starts, I am British. I love London, right? It is an absolutely fantastic city, and they choose, and the fact that they choose to film this installment there is just amazing. But it just doesn't have the same glamour as some of the far-off, sun-drenched lands as we have seen in the previous movies. You know, and good old British health and safety means that we can see the barriers used to hold back the spectators as we chase across some of the most iconic scenes in London, you know? So yeah, I wouldn't say, so I love London, don't get me wrong, but it gives the film a bit of a greyness, you know? I'd rather be in Florida, you know, or Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Yeah, Punta Cana, but in Dominican Republic. You know, some of the other films, they had much more exotic location. But anyway, I wouldn't say that the overall pacing was fantastic in this movie, though, come to think of it. At the start, it does feel like it has quite that build-up. I think quite a few of them have had that. It doesn't take long at all for us to kind of get into the action that we come to get used to, that kind of Fast and Furious magic, if you like. But then it kind of starts to kind of slump, if you know what I mean, for quite some time, in its attempt to kind of establish this story and backbone for the gear shift that we have here, as you know, as compared with, you know, like the bright, punchy and breezy feel of the last installment. There are more than the usual share of broody, lingering moments and sass from each of the characters. Although I must admit that whilst they do add a certain quality and depth to the overall story, they could have been better paced to move things along in this instance. Although it's not quite as melancholy as the fourth instalment, and indeed it is still tremendous fun in this way, nonetheless, all told, with quite a lot of comedy added for good flavour that really does help to balance things out considerably, so don't get me wrong. But ultimately, it's the last 40 minutes or so is where it's all at in this movie, you know? It's a bit hit and miss up to that point. But once it does get into its full swing, we are chock full of the kind of outrageous stunts we have come to expect from this series, with some fantastically choreographed chase sequences, albeit on one of the longest roads ever built, I think, and ending with a series of spectacular and outlandish action sequences, which with some totally impossible stunts involving a runway seemingly the length of Spain. But that's, of course, part of the fun, you know? Overall, this is, don't get me wrong, and anything I've said, is a pretty decent all-round action flick. It really is. And, you know, acts as a reasonable continuation to the ongoing Fast and Furious franchise, and remains an extremely enjoyable thrill ride for those seeking the high-octane adventures from the comfort of their own seat. It is perhaps a darker entry in tone than its direct predecessor, but this was to start taking the series in a different, more involved direction, which, while still having fast cars at its heart, you can feel we are slowly moving away from this basic premise to a more kind of spy, kind of espionage style, with bigger stakes thrown in at our intrepid and diesel-fueled team, with the last remnants to throwbacks to their racing days, before we kind of leave those days firmly behind to go on full-on world-saving mode, pedal to the metal. One of the things I do enjoy about this entry is its sense of belonging. Moreover, not just because family is its main theme, but this is actually used as a vehicle itself to connect not only the fourth and the fifth movies into the franchise, but also to bring the third into the fold in quite an ingenious way, which I can admit I didn't see coming. The way that they do it is quite sad in one way, but it does help to answer some of the questions about one character in particular, which have been burning ever since we saw his reappearance in the 4th movie, following his supposed death in the 3rd. The fact that the producers found a way to acknowledge the existence of the 3rd movie after it being such an odd one out is amazing, in my book, and quite a rare thing to do, you know? Oh, catch my breath. So yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, I was going to say it is quite a rare thing to do, but the fact that they didn't retcon it completely is just absolutely amazing. I love the whole series, and even more so because of that, you know. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Yes, absolutely loved having you at SciFirst MovieTalk. Definitely love to have you back. But most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.